Greetings, my fellow food lovers and sovereign thinkers. This is LL3's newest podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful swampy Mangrove, South Florida, and today's date, Monday, December 24th, 2015. So let us begin. Thanks for tuning in, folks. Christmas Eve, beautiful afternoon in the heart of Fort Lauderdale. Pretty quiet. You may hear a truck here now and then, but most of the businesses are closing down early. Here at the families. Probably hear a dump truck behind me. That's alright. In the garage area. So, some interesting stuff is happening. It's driving the neocons crazy. The warmongering demonods from the Trump's cabinet. And so-called elected servants in Congress are all had a cow because the withdrawal of troops from Syria. Well, in that perspective, I do like that. We gotta stop being an empire. Great message. Mattis, neocon stooge Mattis has resigned. My heart bleeds. Everyone was complaining on these little sissy tirades from all the garbage media, whether from the left or the right. You know how that goes. You know how I feel about it. But you always got to be leery, or in other words, make it vigilant. A lot of work still needs to be done. That's how I observe it. But, like I said, like President Trump or not, you got to commend him for this. And of course, what's going on in Korea? They're actually talking. They're defusing the militarized zone. I remember I was watching some of that a while back. And that's good because the families in that nation from the 32nd parallel have suffered long enough. They want to live in peace with themselves. The United States should not get involved. If they want to give them advice, that's fine. But if they want you to give you an inch, don't swipe a mile. So a lot of things have happened in this year, good or bad. However, they try to do things federalized. They try to say feds know best. It's always backfiring. I've been reading a lot of stuff in the reviews, right of privacy, digital privacy, and all that, and it's fantastic. This is part of the game. Of course, we know, too, about 10th Amendment style, notifications, hemp, marijuana, Michigan. Fantastic. Like I said, long ways to go. Short time to get there, right? Long ways to go, so be patient. Don't feel depressed. Economic collapse is supposed to be happening. Heard it all before. But if you're going to blame President Trump for it, don't buy it. I know I've said this a few times. He's right about one thing. The Federal Reserve is the bigger threat than China. I like that. Action speaks louder than words, folks. All you got to do is start doing your homework. Especially reading the Constitution. Plenty of sites to look at. But it is an exciting time to be alive. And we still got to focus on our states as well, including Florida. See all these bogus bills I'm laughing at. Illegal bills. Prohibited bills. It's called. Definitely does not supersede Article 10 of our state constitution. So without further ado, this came from covertgeopolitics.co, right? Geopolitics. And it talks about the pullout from Syria and development in Mexico and Central America. As the reason here, President Trump is beginning to find some room to act upon his actual intentions, having consolidated support in the Senate in the election, making impeachment essentially impossible, while the British Rushgate hoax is crumbling. In the past 24 hours, Trump struck 2 blows on the empire, declaring that all troops and State Department operatives are being pulled out of Syria quickly, while also declaring that U.S. and Mexico will proceed with a large-scale joint investment into job-creating programs in poverty-stricken and drug-infested areas of southern Mexico and Central American nations of Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala. I say destroy to terminate the Monroe Doctrine, for starters, because it is a very bad foreign policy from the United States that happened 100 years ago, way before you and I were born. On Syria, the president tweeted, "We have defeated ISIS in Syria. My only reason for being there during the Trump presidency." His spokesperson confirmed that the pullout will proceed rapidly. According to the New York Times, some Pentagon officials have been fighting tooth and nail to stop him, or at least make it phase withdrawal. But Trump wouldn't break. This happened on the same day that the Astana group, Russia, Turkey, Iran, came to an agreement with the Syrians and the UN to establish a constitutional committee to draft a constitution for a new Syrian political structure. Trump had repeatedly stressed that he's not interested in regime change in Syria or anywhere else. The people in Syria got to make that decision. And I agree. Like Assad or not, the people have to make that decision. On Mexico, Trump has found a common ground with the new Mexican president, Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador, on the necessary means to deal with the illegal immigration crisis, create jobs. AMLO on Tuesday morning said there's a new, different way of dealing with the problem of migration, which addresses the causes. The day is going to come very soon in which people are not going to immigrate from Mexico. At least that is my dream. The deal agreed yesterday will approximately double the U.S. planned investment into the region, perhaps exceeding $10 billion. Now the battle begins to turn this initiative into the start of a giant regional infrastructure program required for defeating the drug cartels and enormous poverty in the region, such as building the railroad connecting to the continents of North and South America proposed since the McKinley administration. It's precisely this commitment to peace through development and to cooperation with Russia and China in the vision for that future, in which has driven the frantic British Empire effort to bring Trump down. The MI6 fabricated Russian collusion scam has been exposed as an utter fraud, and even while Mueller and his team continue to manufacture any potential charges against Trump as possible, not having anything to do with Russia, Mueller assigned target. Trump is moving on. The British Lords let the cat out of the bag on Tuesday with a report released by the International Relations Commission of the House of Lords, titled UK Foreign Policy in a Shifting World Order, as the way the empire, when the current means of wielding world power is destroyed, they do not slink quietly into the night. This means for the past several decades since the death of Franklin Roosevelt and John F. Kennedy has been used to use U.S. brawn to achieve British imperial policy, fighting colonial wars in Southeast and Southwest Asia, and imposing IMF conditionalities to prevent any real development in the former colonies. The Lords report whines were Trump to win the second term. The damage to U.S.-UK relations. The UK's most important international relationship will be longer lasting, and the government will need to place less reliance on reaching a common U.S.-UK approach to the main issue of the day than has been the case in the past. The danger in this, they add, is that China and Russia also pose a threat to rules-based international order. They are euphemism for the British Empire. And India, they add, may also get away from their imperial rule. And there's a thing from LoachPAC.com about the empire. That's very interesting indeed. It says zone here, the Full Belt Road Initiative Land Bridge. This is a high-speed railway spread across all continents. So that's what they want to do. Is worldwide. This main railway where the land bridge was for the Bering Straits, and boom, go right through and all that good stuff. Interesting there. Well, you know what? I'm expecting more of the cloak and daggering game as usual. Not surprised at all. And one thing I know for sure, folks. It's not time to be alive, right? Absolutely. Vigil is always going to be important regardless. I'm not saying I'm going to leave Trump at all. I'll trust him in everything. No. You got to put his feet to the fire, as well as the people in the House of Representatives, etc., in the military-industrial complex, including the Pentagon. They've been playing around with people's lives for so many years and getting away with a lot of stuff, and now look what's happening. Things are backfiring on them. Even blowback. Who gets screwed on that? Innocent people, non-combatants. Yes, and what's going on happen in Central America. It's Club of Rome and poor U.S. foreign policy. That needs to change. That's why I say shred the Monroe Doctrine, or repeal a lot of the language in there, because the one thing you gotta look at, based on past history, people are learning this. Doesn't matter what your belief system is. And then I know one thing: the Club of Rome hates this. That's a damn good thing too. I like this. They hate it. It has to be good. And remember, the Founding Fathers supported. They always support entangling alliances. They believe alliance to none, trade with all. What's so hard about that? Remember, you got people who have lust for imperialism in a very long time. So yeah, my friends, support President Trump on this matter with Syria, which I do give him the thumbs up. And people didn't hear my show so many times. If I'm critical, I have merit. And it's a good one here by Richard. If we are to seek remedy on what's wrong in America, know the true founders who enabled it. We must start with the first founding documents of declarations and claims of the Revolutionary War of Independence. This treaty contract is a primary document you all must understand. None of the 1783 Treaty of Peace. That negotiated this treaty, one of the king's men, acting as Squire Mason and named Benjamin Franklin. So it's a good thing to read. So go check that out. So at least it's good, because they want to make sure they have its pros and cons, but the bigger picture. People want to live in peace, man. Yeah. I chat with folks from all walks of life, and they don't like what's going on. So definitely, we gotta go further. And speaking of this, I'm gonna keep it short today. Bob Livingston alerts came out. This one came out a while back, maybe a week ago, I would say. But interesting alert. Says here, mind control in the U.S. government by Bob Livingston. The modern mind control is a very sophisticated process that prepares the public mind to act in support of the system at the expense of the individual and personal privacy and liberty. Be right about this often, because of the psychological warfare on the people used by the establishment to collectivize and mold the public mind to its will, stealing the people's liberty. Governments and politicians master their agenda and create illusions to deceive and misrepresent. Governments, bureaucrats, and politicians look upon the public as a herd that should be deceived and led for the benefit of government and the elite. This psychological warfare has stepped the people's minds in conventional wisdom. Conventional wisdom is what everybody believes. It is knowledge and thought processes ingrained in people beginning at a young age in government indoctrination camps, also called public schools. This indoctrination continues throughout adulthood via controlled media. Government men are constantly working to perfect their mind control system. That's because there are still people who escape the system. Those who escape have inquiring minds that allow them to reject conventional wisdom and question long-held beliefs and recognize that things are not always as they seem. The government cannot have nonconformists because nonconformists challenge authority. The effort by government men to perfect their craft have led to dreadful experimentation on people, often without their knowledge and consent. Yes, subliminal message is a very good example, folks. That's because beyond just seeing the people as their subjects, the agencies within the federal government view the people as its lab rats, what we call numbers, demonods, peasants, etc. Government men, from the so-called health agencies to the military to the intelligence agencies, have conducted experiments on people they openly and in secret. Some of them conducted by agents of the United States are as ghastly as those conducted under Nazi Germany. Efforts within the military-industrial complex and the intelligence agency to create super soldiers and weapons that control the minds of the enemy took off after World War II. Two of these programs are MK Ultra and DARPA, which DARPA stands for Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. The CIA mind control program MK Ultra was revealed by the Church Committee, seemingly something out of Robert Lindblom's novel. Documents uncovered in the 1960s demonstrate that the CIA was experimenting on people, often without their knowledge, in an effort to find drugs and methods that would affect the human mind in ways that would make them obey commands or react to spontaneous signals without hesitation and forget their actions, and that would alter their personalities and disable them. These are just some of the nefarious mind control experiments the CIA engaged in. Among the most famous victims of MK Ultra that we know about are Ken Kesey, Whitey Bulger. Remember Whitey Bulger? Yeah. Robert Hunter, Harold Blower, James Stanley, Wayne Ritchie, Ruth Kelly, Dr. Robert Hyde, George White, and the agents of the Office of Security and Technical Service Staff, both CIA departments. Details of this insidious program continue to leak out thanks to the intrepid works of John Greenwald Jr., who run the website The Black Vault. Greenwald has spent most of the last 20 years hounding the CIA with document requests through the Freedom of Information Act, trying to get to the bottom of the program. His efforts, more than 9,000 FOIA requests resulting in more than 2 million pages of documents, slow him. He's only scratched the surface of his inquiry into these nefarious activities. He believes the CIA has lied and misled him for 20 years, and there still remain thousands of pages of documents in CIA files outlining their work. And some files he's seen indicate the government's efforts in this area have not stopped. A recent batch of documents released to Greenwald show research on dogs and cats that aimed at controlling their behavior with electric impulses to the brain. It's a good documentary called Human Resources. You should look that up. Electronic devices were implanted in the brain of dogs and cats, and animals were released into the field for experimentation. Animal experiments are always a prelude to human experiments. Their research was limited by the technology of the 1950s and 1960s and unsuccessful at the time. But electronic technology is far advanced more than what it was 60 plus years ago. Most Americans scoff at the notion that agents of the government would behave in such a fashion. Most Americans under the false belief that the U.S. government is an agent of good in the world and federal agencies want to protect citizens from harm. But history is rife with examples of government action ostensibly to help the people, resulting in privation, destruction, death, and turmoil. Anyone who has truly studied the history of governments around the world has seen that the elected class, with very few exceptions, is populated by a psychopathic mix of destroyers and seekers of wealth and power. They pay little mind to the consequences of their actions. What is relevant to them is their glorification, gratification, and security at the seat of power. Here are a few examples right here in America. During the Prohibition in the 1920s, under President Calvin Coolidge, poisons were intentionally added to alcohol to deliberately sicken people in order to discourage them from drinking. More than 10,000 people died and countless more were sickened and debilitated from drinking the deliberately poisoned spirits. During the Great Depression, with Americans starving and standing in long food lines, government forced farmers to destroy crops and kill livestock in order to prop up food prices. Remember, folks, it wasn't capitalism that made this happen. Under the Tuskegee syphilis experiment, hundreds of black men were tricked into thinking They are receiving free health care from government. Instead, their disease went untreated, as did that contracted by their wives and children born to them. In the Philippines, prisoners study U.S. Army doctors intentionally infected prisoners with bubonic plague and exposed others to beriberi, or beriberi, excuse me. At St. Vincent's Houses Orphanage, children were deliberately infected with tuberculin, leaving some permanently blind and affected with lesions of the skin and inflammation of the eyes. In 1911, the Rockefeller Institute for Medical Research, 146 patients, some of them children, were deliberately injected with syphilis. University of Michigan virologist Thomas Francis Jonas Salk, the Salk polio vaccine, and others deliberately infected mental patients with the influenza virus by spraying it into their nasal passages. Inmates at Stateville Penitentiary in Joliet, Illinois, were exposed to malaria in the 1940s. In a study conducted by the U.S. Army State Department and University of Chicago of Medicine, related studies were conducted from 1944 to 1946 of mental patients at the Illinois State Hospital. The president of these malaria studies as used part of the defense for Nazi doctors at the Nuremberg trial. In the 1950s, in San Francisco, the U.S. sprayed large quantities of bacteria, Serratia marxensis, considered harmless at the time, over San Francisco to conduct stimulation of biological warfare attack. Dozens of people contracted a pneumonia-like illness, and some died. In 1952, researcher with Sloan Kettering Institute injected live cancer cells into prisoners at Ohio State Prison. Also at Sloan Kettering, 300 healthy women were injected with live cancer cells without being told. The CIA released whooping cough bacteria from boats outside Tampa Bay, Florida in 1955. A whooping cough epidemic resulted, which killed at least 12 people. Army bio-warfare researchers released millions of infected mosquitoes over Savannah, Georgia, and Avon Park, Florida. Avon Park is near Okeechobee County, if I'm correct. In Okeechobee, around Okeechobee County, near Lake Okeechobee. There's a claim there's a FEMA camp there as well. In 1956 and 1957, to test how yellow fever and dengue fever spreads, hundreds contracted a wide variety of illnesses, including fevers, respiratory illness, stillbirths, encephalitis, and typhoid. Military personnel were often subjected to various biological, chemical, and radiological warfare agents without consent. Unless you think such human experimentation is from a time long ago, the Environmental Protection Agency was found to be conducting experiments on people in 2010 and 2011. The experiments involved the effects of particulate matter, PM, and diesel exhaust on humans. The EPA did not consent forms from 81 people in 5 studies. It also did not provide information to study participants on the amount of PM they would be exposed to and the danger risk for those with health conditions. The EPA has long said the PM is deadly. In a 2003 EPA document, the agency claimed even short-term exposure to PM can result in heart attacks and arrhythmias in people with heart disease. A 2006 EPA report links the short-term PM exposure to mortality and morbidity. Now back to mind control. It is not unusual following a mass murder of other horrific crime for the relatives and acquaintances of the offender claim to act or deed is completely out of character. And often the criminal will claim to have heard voices in his head or experienced irresistible urges that made him carry out the act. Conventional wisdom automatically rejects this as impossible and the raving of a crazy person. It is precisely the reaction expected from a programmed mind. And there's a lot interesting claims on that. Even Sirhan. I believe Nicholas Cruz, suspect shooter Nicholas Cruz, said the same thing. And on Omar Mateen and Esteban Santiago. Just to give you some examples, folks. I'm not worried about President Trump. It's just everyone surrounding him. It's been going on for a very long time. This is why you never trust the government, period. Sometimes I get flabbergasted. Have to read this and study this again and again. I do find this really disturbing. That's why government can be the real enemy to liberty. Doesn't matter where you're at, whether the United States or beyond. You never, ever trust the government. Question, observe, and be critical thinkers. If they hate it, it has to be good. Always remain vigilant. And that is it. I'd like to thank everyone for listening. Plus, feel free to download and share us around your social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, or you said something that's interesting, you might check out. Whatever you do, please feel free to address your correspondence with decorum. Plus, the footnotes pertaining to this episode, and social media sites, including email contacts, will be along with it on my Spreaker page. Well, folks, I'd like to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Just be safe out there, okay, my friends? Be good to each other and always remain vigilant. Pay attention and know you have to battle. And always be proactive. Doesn't mean you have to go crazy or cut your wrist or anything like that. Alright? Love always conquers. That's how I look at it. Alright, my friends. That's all for now. Once again, thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that the demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Keep on spreading love. And may your guardian spirits be with you.